Gurudeva in UK 96, and then 98, under his direction I left, went to India, and I was living in, like over the winter, 2 winters I stayed in Vrindavan and then in Mathura also. And then one winter, Gurudev, he was directing, where everyone's going to preach, and he said, Jnanadas will edit Jaiva Dharma. That was it. So I was really happy. I got an instruction. So I was living in Mathura. So on the one hand, during the winter, I was downstairs. It wasn't so cold there. But the prasadam was really difficult. Really difficult. I didn't have any money for anything. And it was like day by day. I was, oil and spices and like that. excuse me, it's prasadam, but it's Indian prasadam. I was having a really, really, really hard time. And then Sripad Nemi Maharaja came and he gave me some tomato and paneer sandwiches, and it was like ambrosia from heaven. So he advised me to make a representation to Gurudev, that I need to change my position. And he said, make a list of how much money you need and like that. And there was some misunderstanding, and Gurudev got the list, and he called me and he said, we can't keep you here. You go and preach somewhere. Brajanath will pay for the ticket. I was like, really? So about that time, he gave a lecture downstairs in Mathura. And then, he used to go up the stairs, and then all the devotees rush up, and then there'd be a double line, and he'd interact with the devotees on the way to his room. So as he was going by, he actually looked at me, which he didn't always do. And I said, Gurudev, he'd been talking about surrender. I said, Gurudev, I want to surrender, but I need some help. And he looked at me like, he was really close. He said, yes, I will help you. Come to my room tomorrow with the Western devotees. I said, who? He said, come with your Urakram. That was Sripad Nemi Maharaja then. So okay, Urakram Prabhu and myself, we turned up at his room. And he said, call the Western devotees. So we called the Western devotees. And then we're all sitting there. So then he says, Jnanadas, what's your problem? And after that he gave me such a hard time. There was one time he said, he was like sitting there giving a lecture, he said, give Jnanadas the mic. That was my name then, microphone. So I was holding the microphone. He said, what kind of a disciple do you think you are? So devotees thought I'd really been offensive or something. So after, when he said, you have to go and preach somewhere and Brajanath will pay the fare, so I walked out of his room, and Urakram Prabhu, Sripad Nemi Maharaja, was waiting outside. So he said, what did he say? I said, well, I've got to go and preach somewhere. He said, good, you come with me to Russia. I'd already met up with the Russian devotees. That was cool. So long, and then another time Gurudev was, he was giving a lecture, and he was talking about Jagadananda Pandit's Prem Vivart. So in Prem Vivart, everything's backwards. So Gurudev was saying, in the spiritual world, nobody says I love you. Because it's like opening up a box with camphor. If you hold the box open, then the camphor evaporates, disappears. So nobody says I love you. And in the spiritual world also, spiritual master never says to the disciple, I love you. And then I was sitting in the audience, he looked right at me. He said, you should realize these things.
And so after that, then I started to come to India. First year in India was 2003. And I don't know why I didn't go early. I just didn't have the sincerity. I used to think that I didn't have enough money to go, but my financial situation didn't change at all, but somehow I found myself going to India twice a year. After that, the money just manifested. And Gurudev, we sat at his feet for hearing his Hari Katha and living in the same buildings with him and going on parikrama with him season after season for nearly a decade, and that was the best decade of my life by far. I was only with Prabhupada for 3 weeks, but I was with Gurudev. If we condensed all those trips to India and all the times that I saw him in Mawulambar, I worked it out. If I condensed them down, all the weeks and months, they amount to 3.5 years. I was personally in his company, in his Sangha, very close to him. 3.5 years, which is not nearly as long as many of the more early fortunate devotees had, but still, that was the best, most wondrous time of my life. To be actually connected with somebody who's not of this world is quite unique, and it's causeless, utter causeless mercy, that's for sure. But I really feel that Prabhupada gave me Gurudev. Prabhupada gave me Gurudev because I prayed to Prabhupada, please come back, please come back. And he came back in the form of Gurudev. And then Gurudev in turn gave me Prabhupada because I came to understand from the greatness of Gurudev and the love of Gurudev. When I say the greatness of Gurudev, I don't mean like Aishwarya greatness. I mean like the greatness of his bhakti. The greatness of his bhakti helped me appreciate the greatness of Prabhupada's bhakti, the greatness of Gurudev's love, and Gurudev's appreciation of Vrindavan, and how he brought all the Vrajabasis to life for us, and he introduced them to us personally, and helped me see that its relationship with these Vrajabasis, it's the development of relationship with the Vrajabasis is going to bring us to Braj. That's the doorstep, that's the process for developing Vraja Bhakti. And Gurudev did that. Prabhupada hadn't so much, well, obviously, because we were babies, we were just new entrants into the whole idea of spiritual life. So that wasn't Prabhupada's position to do that. Prabhupada laid the foundation so expertly. But obviously Prabhupada was as immersed in Vraja Bhakti as Gurudev was. And I came to appreciate how Prabhupada, he must have had to keep so much from us because we weren't ready. He did let it out though from time to time. You can see, watching the videos of him and reading the books of Prabhupada, you can see how his Vraja Bhakti was there, but it wasn't, he didn't fully manifest it as our Gurudev did. When I say fully manifested, I mean he explained, he didn't hold back on details. He gave us all the explanations of all the different moods of Srimati Radhika and all the different personalities of the eternal parikars, and he did it in such a way that it was practically like you could feel their presence. And I remember him describing how Nanda Baba and Krishna and Balaram left Vrindavan, and then they were to come back in a couple of days. And of course Nanda Baba did come back in a couple of days, but without Krishna and Balaram. And what a devastation that was for all of Vrindavan. And when Gurudev was telling this, he would cry. His voice would shake, and his eyes would moisten and tears would come. You know, he could feel that himself. He was empathizing with that very situation. He could feel it himself. Things like that. I saw things like that many times, which made, because he was there living the Braj pastimes and moods, it injected out into all of us, the listeners. Came out in the atoms and molecules of his voice and went into our ears and went into our hearts. And it was real, you know. It gave an experience of the reality of it, without a doubt.
Lord's mercy, I came back to Vrindavan when I was first here in 1980, as I told. And so I came back in 1987. it was just before Radhashtami, and and then after that, as we know, Kartik is coming, and so we perform Kartik Vrat, and then first time I really saw him and had again the exchange with him was when he was giving class during Prabhupada's, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day. And so he was glorifying Prabhupada, and I was impressed. Two things actually struck me, which he was saying. I still remember that he was mentioning something about the sannyasis in ISKCON, and he was suggesting they should try to be austere, the sannyasis, that is required for the sannyasis. And then he was also, at that time it was 87, and the work for Prabhupada Samadhi was going on a little slowly. So he was mentioning about that also. And other things I can't remember what he was saying, but I was attracted, and still I was feeling I would like to meet him. And then for the disappearance for the last day of the Kartik Purnima, so that was the first year of the installation, the celebration of the installation of Rup Sanatan Gaudiya Math. Rup Sanatan Gaudiya Math was established 1986. So 87 was the first year of the celebration of the Rup Sanatan Gaudiya Math there, the installation of the deities there. So Gurudev invited senior devotees from ISKCON and the general devotees to come and participate in the ceremony. There was a good relationship, and one of our leaders, the GBC for Vrindavan, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj, had gone there, and maybe 30 devotees from ISKCON had gone there. And Gurudev was speaking, he was giving class, then there was a yagya, and of course kirtan was going on. And then everyone was getting ready for prasad and taking prasad. And then Gurudev was sitting in his room, which was, if you face the deities and Seva Kunj there, it is on the right side. It was on the right side there, where he was staying, on one of the rooms there. Later on he moved upstairs towards the left of Seva Kunj, but in the beginning he was there on the right. So some senior devotees went there, I went there also, and I thought, let me just offer my obeisances to him, and I thought I should give him some donation. He's such a great personality. I had a few hundred rupees as a brahmachari, something. And I offered to him the few rupees I had, and then something happened which really again touched me. He asked me, why are you giving me this donation? I said, because I think you're a pure devotee. And then he said, no, I'm not a pure devotee, you're a pure devotee. And then I was so much touched. He's such a great personality, I'm such an insignificant personality. And he's just saying he's not a pure devotee and I'm a pure devotee. So then I really felt I would like to take shelter of his lotus feet. And but then I went back to ISKCON, and then I was going for some program in Jaipur with some devotees, some preaching program, and then I was wanting to go to South India with some devotee for visiting some places, and so then after Jaipur we went to Ahmedabad, to Dwarka, and there I had a wonderful dream, and night time, so we had darshan of the Dwarkadish in Dwarka, and so the places around there, and then early morning I had a dream. Of course, sometimes you may see the dreams are just dreams, but still, if the Guru is there, then it is wonderful. And I mean, I had many experiences also by dreams, which I may say. also. So then I was dreaming again. We were in Vrindavan, and he was giving lecture in ISKCON, speaking some things, and there he was repeating about the sannyasis. They have to be renounced, and then telling all the devotees, ISKCON devotees, you have to finish the samadhi. It is taking too much time. And then suddenly he looked at me in the dream, and of course then smiling at me. And then of course I was very much surprised, and then I was feeling very much enlivened, and again wanting to meet him again and have and take shelter of him.